everyone, Dominic here, bringing you guys another Ravening Report. This time we've got a standard 4,500 point game, Vampire Covenant versus the Warriors of the Dark Gods. Game type we played this time was Marching Columns, with Capture the Flags as the secondary. Just before we get into this, both of us were playing a bit of a different list that neither of us have really played before. So if I get some of the names wrong or pause a little bit, that's probably why. Let's get into it. Here's a quick look at the table before we did any deployment. So we've got a hill, forest, impassable, a hill, another piece of impassable, and a forest. Warriors pick their sides, and we let them deploy first. So they chose this side and started deploying that way. So he's got a unit of Chosen Knights. I believe they've got Envy. He's got a Chimera. He's got a unit of Fallen, I believe these were, with his Sorcerer Adept on a War Dais, not this Scythe Skywheel. He's got a unit of Wretched Ones up here, unit of Dogs, unit of Chosen Warriors, I guess. I believe they were Envy as well. And he's got a Doom Lord in here on a War Dais. Beside that, he's got a unit of Warriors. I don't remember how they were equipped or how they were kitted out there, if they had any other upgrades, but he's got another unit of Wretched Ones, another unit of Dogs, and then finally on his far flank, he's got the Exalted Herald. So for Vampire Covenant, we have a unit of 25 Zombies Musician Standard, a unit of 8 Ghasts with a champion. I know there's 9 here, but after I think turn 1 I realized that there's only 8 in the unit. I've got a unit of 28 I think there was. 28 zombies. In that unit I've got a Wizard Master of Alchemy with, just on foot there on the corner, there's a Cadaver Wagon in the center. Next to that, I have a unit of Ghouls. They have the Vanguard upgrade because I'm using the Strigoi Bloodline. The Ghast on the center, or on the corner here, is a Vampire Courtier. BSB, he's got a few different upgrades. I think he's got the Banner of the Relentless Company, and that's pretty much it. I don't remember. He's an adept I can't remember if I made him an adept or an apprentice. I think he's only an apprentice. In that unit as well is the Vampire Count, the Army General, Wizard Adept of Shamanism. He's got a few goodies there. A small unit of Bat Swarms, and rounding out was a Varkalak. I did keep a Altar of Undeath held back as a reserve. That's a quick look at the table after I did my Vanguard moves. And Warriors of the Dark Gods have first turn. So, right off the start, he moves up kind of in the center here, and immediately I didn't like my deployment even before I was doing Vanguards. I didn't really care for my deployment too much. Because this guy I knew was just going to fly in and cause all kinds of problems. So I was trying to figure out from the get-go what to do with this guy. The rest of his army just kind of slowly makes the advance. My opponent really likes doing a sweep move where he pivots around the center of the table and tries to sweep an entire side around that. So goes into magic. Does Breath of Corruption, but didn't really read the spell, didn't bump it. So he's got only 6-inch range and is outside of range of anything that he can see. So tries to do a Wrath of God, and I don't think that came off. But that's pretty much it. So we go into turn 1 for Vampire Covenant. Without a solution, I figured maybe this guy would like that target, and I can hold him down. Without that, I figured he was just going to fly into my back zone anyway, so there was no point in trying to try and capture him. Just bring the Varkalak, face him towards the back lines, and hopefully I can pin him down somehow and maybe get rid of him. The rest of my lines kind of move up a little bit. The Ghasts, not really sure what they can do yet. I've never used Ghasts, that's why I only have about 3 models for them. And yeah, we go into Magic. We tried to do Corruption of Tin on his warriors, which I believe was dispelled. And the only other thing we do is we raise a unit of zombies back here and bump them up. So that's kind of what the table looks like as we go into turn 2 for Warriors of the Dark Gods. So he declares his charge here from the Hounds into my Vampires unit, which I was 100% okay with this. He declares a flank charge over here, again, even better, getting rid of his chaff all at once. And to my surprise, he declares a charge into the flank of the ghouls with his Exalted. At this point, I was thinking I've solution solved. I figured with the combat res, I'll feed him the unit champ out of the ghouls, and like the hounds have got no champion or way to get it, I don't think. So challenge him out. The 2 vampires will deal with all of the hounds, and he'll maybe pop from combat res. So they all make it in, and he continues to move up with the rest of that sort of flanking maneuver, I suppose. He makes a bit of a mistake here, as you'll see soon, with the Chimera behind the Knights. We go into his magic phase. And this turn he decides to cast a Wrath God. It goes off. That's the little token right here, right in the center of everything. And we go into combat. And just like I said, I challenge him out. And he squishes the unit champion. My vampires swing back. We kill out the dogs. The dogs on the flank, I actually failed to kill all of them, and they did, I think, 2 or 3 wounds to me as well. But that doesn't matter, I still win with combat res. He was down by a bunch. He did have the attribute spell from casting the Comet go off on his Doom Lord, or Exalted Herald, I suppose. So he minimized roll, and it was just enough that he stuck around. So I turn to face like so. That's what the table looks like as we go into turn 2 for Vampire Covenant. So over here we declare a charge in the rear and a charge in the flank. And the flank charge fails, the other one makes it. Ambushers come on, he moves on in the center, and then I moved him sideways over here for the remaining moves. And the rest of this stuff kind of shifts just enough to keep within range here of this corpse cart, or this cadaver wagon. And I was a little bit rusty with it because I forgot about making sure the range for a little while and caught myself the last minute. We go into magic. We raise a bunch of... Sorry, this isn't raising guys back. This is the end of magic. I forgot to take pictures. But we basically, in the magic phase, we buffed up the ghouls with +1 strength and armor pen from the shamanism lore. So my vampire count has scarification on him, just in case he wants to challenge out. And we also got off one of the alchemy spells, so they're also +1 armor pen from that. And then we made him the Doom Lord, or the Exalted Herald, flammable with the attribute as well. The comet came down, killed off a bunch of guys, as you see, and we go into combat. He directed his attacks against my BSB, And he kind of whiffed a little bit. He did manage to sneak one through, but that's acceptable. And then between the Varkalak and the two characters, just the two characters, and the Varkalak, that is, we put the last wounds on the Exalted. I was really hoping that the unit here would have done one of the wounds, just to get that Unholy Appetite here when he brings something in his next turn, but died before they got to even roll. So that's what the table looks like as we go into turn 3 for Warriors of the Dark Gods. So over here, he was looking at it for a little while and decided he was going to charge with the Chosen, and then immediately changed his mind and decided the Warriors were going to go in because it was a much more reliable charge. So they declare that charge, and they fail. So they just end up there. He does have that unit of Wretched Ones that's going to go into the ghouls, and the other unit of Wretched Ones went into the zombies here. And like I said before, there was the one move that he kind of messed up on. I'll just go back to that here. Maybe you guys can correct me if I'm wrong in this, but he's got his Chosen up front and the Chimera behind. So with both of these guys being large and tall, I don't believe he could actually see over them to declare that charge, I think is how it goes, which is what he was planning on doing, is just charging the Chimera over top and decimating the zombies, but because of that line of sight issue, couldn't do it. And that's why just the Wretched Ones decided to go into this fight. So they make it in, and he decides to remaneuver here for what might happen next. I think he was a little not sure what to do with his Chosen. They actually, I want to say they sidestepped a bit with the Fallen in the back, just kind of, again, sidestepping, backstepping, not really pursuing forward. Goes into Magic Phase. He gets Hand of Glory off on his Doom Lord's unit, which I let go off. He got actually a pretty successful Magic Phase. He got Ancestral Aid off on his Warriors block, and I think he got another spell off back here. I can't remember what this one was, but all around, very successful Magic Phase for him. We go into combat. The two vampires kill the Wretched Ones before they got to swing, but because of the unredeemable, they knock off and they do a bunch of grind attacks to the unit. And over here, again, we did one wound to him. He does a bunch to me, but not a lot, actually. So I'm still there with about just over 2 ranks. And that's what the table looks like as we go into turn 3 for Vampire Covenant. So the Ghasts declare a flank charge into the Wretched Ones, and we do a double charge the Varkalak and the Ghouls into his Warriors. That's pretty much it. Like I said, everything else is moving up slowly, and this guy I decided to launch over into this combat because I figured he'd be more useful over here if these guys can... I didn't measure. I didn't want to measure in case he wanted to think about it. And this is probably something that I should do a little bit better. But I didn't think he could actually pivot around and get past this impassable terrain to get the flank charge off on the Ghasts when I overrun. So I wasn't too worried about it without even measuring. I probably should have measured. We go into Magic. And again, we buff these guys with +1 strength and +1 armor pen. But I think he stopped the armor pen and he stopped the rest of the raises as well. So I didn't really gain any wounds back anywhere. We go into that combat and absolutely shred that warrior unit down to, looks like, just 4 guys. And they break. I pass the maximized roll to restrain, I believe is what it was, and pivot on the spot like so. Over here, we destroy the Wretched Ones. They grind attack down to just 5 zombies. We failed the overrun by about an inch, so we stopped there. I think it was less than an inch, but didn't quite make it. And now they're going to get the charge, as well as make this closer. And that's what the table looks like as we go into turn 4 for Warriors of the Dark Gods. So he goes in with the Chosen into the side. We did maneuver that one a couple times before they moved in. Turns out they had enough space. So they go into the side of the Ghasts. The Chimera goes into the flank of the Zombies. And the Chosen Knights go into the front of the Ghasts. Goes into Magic. There was something else here. Those few warriors up here did rally. And into Magic. So cast Hand of Glory on his unit. I didn't really care. I figured he was gonna... I'm not gonna do any wounds to him anyway. And that was it that he got for Magic. We go into combat, and he wipes me down pretty good, actually. But I've got just the unit champ left after crumbling in the Ghast combat. The Chimera, of course, took care of the zombies it was fighting and just stayed put where it was. And that's what the table looks like as we go into turn 4 for Vampire Covenant. So over here, we've got the Varkalak declares a long bomb charge against his Fallen with Sorcerer Adept. He elects to hold on that one, and that, even if he fails, will give me enough space that the just the BSB is going to charge out and go after this unit over here. The Varkalak fails, BSB makes it in. This guy was contemplating getting closer, but I just stayed out of arc and within 12 of the Chimera, maybe do some damage. I think for other movements, the Cadaver Wagon is also moving behind the ghouls, and I did abandon the actual unit here, and I moved my Necromancer, Wizard Master, into this unit, and just because of the positioning of things, as soon as they get rid of the Ghast, they're not going to be able to complete this charge, and this guy's got like a very long charge to make it into the flank. It's possible, but it's very far, so we go into Magic. We raise a bunch of ghouls back, and we do Molten Copper to cause some wounds to his Fallen. I think we did max hits and did pretty much maximum damage there too. Combat, the BSB shreds apart the warriors and gains his wound back from Vampiric as well. The last Ghast goes down, and that's what the table looks like. Like I said, because of this terrain here, he'd actually have to wheel around it this way, and then he'll miss the unit. So he's just got that long charge over here. But that's what the table looks like as we go into Warriors of the Dark Gods, turn 5. So he makes a long charge. He decides to go with both of these units into the original core unit of zombies, trying to capture the secondary objective there. And these guys actually declared a charge. Actually, no, I think we figured out that, again, because of the height of things... Oh no, he declared this charge. The Chosen declared a charge against the Altar of Undeath. And both units of Chosen fail, and the Chimera makes it in alone. We go to Magic. He gets Hand of Glory off on this unit again, which was fine. I didn't really plan on attacking it. And here was one that I was actually kind of surprised he did, but he was just trying to keep his secondary. So he moved the character out here as a sacrificial lamb and decided to run away with the Fallen. I believe they are scoring, but so that's what the table looks like. And I think that's pretty much it. We fight this combat. I think I actually did 2 wounds to the Chimera. He does a bunch back, but not a lot, and we stay put. Into turn 5 for Vampire Covenants. We move the ghouls down the hill, and without any... Oh, we declared a charge, first of all. The Varkalok went solo against his Sorcerer into the flank. And with no ranged threats at this point, I figured the Necromancer is going to get as far away from danger as possible. So he's out on his own. The raised unit turns around just to face. The ghouls come down the hill, and then the BSB rejoin them. Again, the Cadaver Wagon is just trailing behind. Actually moved him out of range as well of the zombies over here, kind of unintentionally. I kept forgetting that this guy's on a war dais and can't fly. I moved backwards with the Altar of Undeath just to get out of range of those knights again. And we go into magic. We got +1 strength and tough, or +1 strength and armor pen on the Varkalok. And I think I may have got an Arise off or two on the ghouls as well. So they got back up some strength. We go into shooting. The Altar of Undeath failed to do any wounds to the Chimera, unfortunately. And into the combat, we fight this one here, and the Varkalok just tore the Sorcerer apart, and, well, not quite tore him apart, but knocked him down. He fled, and we chased, so got rid of that guy. And in the zombie fight, he continues to grind away at the zombies. But that's otherwise what the table looks like as we go into turn 6 for Warriors of the Dark Gods. So for Warriors of the Dark Gods, just the Doomlord charged out and went into the corner of those zombies. These guys walked out of arc of sight of the ghouls, because they were in a bad spot all of a sudden. These guys are still there, but it's a fairly long charge. I think I needed a 10 or an 11 to make that turn 6 charge. He did declare this charge again. Or no, he didn't declare that charge because his chosen unit was just in the way, blocking it. So he couldn't actually wheel around the chosen in order to make a charge. So they are just kind of sitting there. He goes into magic phase, and he buffs this guy. I didn't even bother stopping it. I didn't see a point. So he's got the Spectral Blades, and he's got Ancestral Aid. We fight that combat. He does a bunch of wounds, but I'm sticking around with 5 guys. And we go into turn 6 for Vampire Covenant. So we did declare that long charge into the flank over here, and obviously failed it. And everything else kind of moves up. The altar gets into turn 6 bubble range there. We go into magic phase, raise a handful of zombies back, and then the Altar of Undeath goes off and kills out the Chimera and a single chosen, but that's not really one that's important, leaving the Doomlord all by himself to fight those zombies. He does so, but can't put the last wounds on the unit. So that's what the table looks like as we as the game ends there, with of course all of this being deceased. So really fun game. Like I said, different lists for both of us. This game ended up being a victory for the Vampire Covenant. It was a 15-5 with a tie on the secondary objective. So definitely don't really care too much for how that list operates, and I don't think that'll be quite what I use coming up next league, but we'll see. I'm thinking maybe something Strigoi or something slightly different from what I'm used to playing. So, as always, thanks for watching, guys, and stay tuned for the next one.